Hey. Welcome to episode 271 of It's called of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. It's called The Art of Confidence. And, like I just kind of flubbed up the end intro that being on stage performing in whatever venue it is doesn't mean that we always get it our way, and it doesn't mean that we don't get nervous, which is a challenge because as Robert Kiyosaki says, it is said that the fear of public speaking is a fear greater than death for most people. According to psychiatrists, the fear of public speaking is caused by the fear of ostracization, the fear of standing out, the fear of criticism, the fear of ridicule, the fear of being an outcast. The fear of being different prevents most people from seeking new ways to solve their problems. Wow, there's a lot of fear in that quote. Yet people like my guest today have experienced the fear instead of saying, "Oh no, I can't do that. I can't live my dream of performing." They find ways to move with this fear and keep doing what they want to do, even though this fear comes up. So with that, I'm excited to bring on my guest, but first,
today's guest, Chandler Price.
And here is Chandler.
Oh, that was a great intro.
Hey, Chandler. Welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason.
I'm so inspired by your story, and I don't want to give anything away, which of course people will know parts of it if they read the description. So I guess the people watching might already know parts of your story, but let's pretend they don't, and just when you were a little kid, all and your parents took you to soccer practice. What did they see you doing out on that field?
Yeah, the rest of the team, they were all up in the action, chasing that soccer ball, and I was dancing. I've only heard reports of this, so I have to take my parents' word, but I was dancing there. Yeah, couldn't care less about the task at hand. I was in my own world.
How old do you think you were at this time?
I think I was like 6 or so. Yeah. Maybe even younger, because I know also around that time is when they decided to put me into dance class, because they were like, okay, clearly she has an interest.
So your parents could have gone two ways with this. One way they could have gone is is taking you aside and told you, "No, Chandler, you're at soccer practice. It's not the time for dancing. It's the time to play soccer." But instead, they notice this. Wow, our daughter loves to dance. Maybe she would like dance class. That
That was pretty cool of them.
so cool. What was it like for you being in those early dance classes?
I have vivid memories of those dance classes. We One of the favorite things that we did was this ballet teacher would guide us through this imaginary land. It wasn't even necessarily dance, it was a creative exercise. And she painted this picture and this story, and we would move about through this imaginary world. And that's the thing that sticks out the most, not like, oh yeah, I learned how to do this dance move. It was that how to live in creative worlds. Haven't thought about that for years, so very cool that you've dug that up already.
And that I mean, that's brilliant teaching because, like, even if a little kid loves dance, I imagine practicing it can get somewhat tedious. But instead of just forcing it to be all tedious, your teacher created this imaginary land that that you still remember loving. That's such a cool story.
Amazing.
What happened next on your journey into the arts as a kid?
Yeah, so from there, my parents started to put me into singing classes and acting classes. So I was doing this, after school. And then I started to study like voice privately. I would have a private voice teacher all the way up and through my college training. So many, many years of voice. And then I started to be in musicals and plays. I started to perform on stage. And
Well, when was your first music or play as a kid?
we did a version of The Little Mermaid, and
Oh,
I played a maid. I played a maid. I don't think I had any lines, but I assisted the prince of The Little Mermaid.
and how old were you when that?
Mm, yeah, I couldn't have been more than maybe 8 years old, something like that.
Do you recall any nerves those first times as a kid getting up on stage?
No, I don't think I had nerves. I felt prepared. It was a small part and I just had fun with it. I liked the opportunity. I think I was jumping at that opportunity to be on stage and an imaginary world with my friends.
Mm. What,
I
what,
think
what,
later I learned that there could be a threat to being in front of people, but not then. I don't think I knew that then.
what was the first play of musical where you had lines?
That would have been, oh, there were a few there were a few smaller parts that I had, but then I was really fortunate in one of these particular summer camp shows. The director wrote a show. It was called School for Witches. And I got to play the mean girl, like the bully girl. And I had two friends that wore wigs, so they looked just like mini me. And that one I had my own lines, of course, and some solo songs, and I loved it.
Do you remember being nervous for that?
No, I don't think I was nervous because I don't think I had any kind of pressure to be good. I was given this role. It was written for me. The director, the writer wrote this role for me. So I didn't feel like I had to be anything different than what I was. I just was like, yeah, I'm gonna go play this role and have so much fun.
those moments are so neat when it just feels near. Like you went up there as a 8-year-old and you're like, oh, this is natural. This is exciting. Love this, and I'm sure under the, having that mindset, you have fun, and I bet you were brilliant because you were you were in that space.
That's very kind. I have no idea if I was brilliant, but you're right in that there's something magical about a person who isn't there's no inhibition within them. And yeah, they're uninhibited and they're living that life on stage. That's what the best of the best are doing. And so because I hadn't learned yet how to be how to be scared, that was coming through, I'm sure.
Why do you think that we humans, as we grow into adulthood, learn so much about being scared when we're in front of people?
I think when we get older, there's more at stake. We become like there must be a certain age where we switch, where we're not so self-conscious, right? We're young, we're just exploring. It's all play. And then sometime or another there's a shift that happens where we go, "Oh, other people are thinking about me. They're judging me. I've heard people say mean things or critical things about me and my performance." And for some people, it just takes one time. It just takes one teacher who
Mhm.
says, "Oh, you're too loud. You're too loud. You need to not be like you are." And that can imprint on a child, and forever they don't wanna open up in that way that they purely did when they did, yeah.
And the hard thing is that teachers not necessarily trying to be unkind. They're just trying to. I mean, maybe they are, but more likely they're trying just to coach. But to the kid, it can be that feedback can be devastating.
Right, right. And that's one example, that I think a lot of people, because yeah, kids are loud and they need to learn when that's a good when it's a good time to be loud. But making it wrong to ever be loud can have that detrimental effect for a person's whole life until they want to address that.
I think of how many times I, as a kid, and almost every kid, many times is told to quiet down. Oh, um, I mean, it's tough. Like the kid wants to be noisy and bouncing off the walls because that feels good. But to a parent or a teacher, that might not feel good at all. So it's just a tough to example of people having very different experiences
Mhm.
and trying to live together.
I think having a place, and I had that. I had a place where I could go and I was encouraged to project my voice, right? I'm learning how to be on stage in my classes. So I could go and I could be loud and I could make characters and I could run about the room and dance. So I had an outlet for that. And that may be what the kids are kind of crying out for is I need an outlet for this energy. And sometimes, I mean, I have no idea what it's like to be a parent. I would definitely not have wanted to be my parents. So that's just something, though, to consider if you have kids. What is their outlet for using this voice that that wants to express, if you have a kid that wants to express?
Um, what a great question for parents to ask. Often I think of acting classes as the parents would get their kids into an acting class if the kid was specifically interested in acting. But what would the case be for acting being more offered as a general subject that every kid takes?
Well, one of the reasons I feel that I don't have a lot of fear in regards to speaking with people I don't know. I won't even call them strangers, but just meet people I meet on the street, for instance. Why I don't have social anxiety, we'll call it, is because all of that training I had as a kid, it taught me that communicating is a form of play. And I share this with people that have experienced social anxiety. What if we reframe it to say, I'm going to go have a scene with this person. Maybe it's awkward.
Mm.
Maybe it's awkwardly awesome. Maybe it's awesome. But at the end of that, I can walk away and I can be okay because that was just play. Even if it was weird, I can move through that. I can move through weirdness and then go do it again. But some people will stay in that place of that was so weird. I never want to feel uncomfortable like that again. They'll replay the things that they said that they wish were different. So to circle back to your question, more play, more I want to put on this hat and be this type of character. I think
Mm.
it's a confidence builder that I can go out in the world and on days where I'm not on days when a person's not feeling as confident, what if they put on their confident what if they put on their superhero cape in their mind and they walk up to the person that they need to have the conversation with and they're playing that role a little bit. They're giving themselves that kind of energy. A kid in an acting class could experience that.
And what you're talking about has real world nope. I'm going to start that sentence over. What you're talking about has real world consequences for adults. Like I'm thinking of how afraid, uneasy I've been about going into job interviews, for instance, or or just that tough conversation that someone doesn't want to have with the landlord or the um or whoever. If a person can put the confidence hat on and say, "Oh, this might be tremendously awkward, but I can still do it. I can still be fine." That can make that can make a difference between having a job they love and a job they hate. Any number of different things. It's huge.
Yeah. And that's just the first example that comes to mind. I think to really, yeah, we could have a whole episode just on that.
So basically, Chandler, are you saying that you developed confidence as a kid and you've always been perfectly confident on stage?
I can't say that's true because as I alluded to later on I learned fear, not on purpose, but the stakes got higher and maybe the kid version of myself in that in with the stakes that high, maybe she wouldn't have had any issue because she still didn't care what people thought. But I learned eventually to care what people think to my disadvantage.
So please, if you don't mind, share you were a sophomore in college, and what happened?
Yeah, so I was cast in my first main stage production, so meaning it's gonna be up on the big stage, and
And how many people would have been in the audience?
a couple hundred, I can't remember how big that theater was. And it's not that I hadn't performed for a couple hundred people before this, but what made this different was the rehearsal process, the preparation time for the show was really short. Back in high school, when we prepared for our shows, we did it for months and months and months, a long time. And you had it down by that point. Like we all could do it in our sleep by that point. But this show went up in a month, maybe, and that's more real world, or not real worlds, but that's more professional. Is you don't spend months and months and months, you spend about a month and then it's up and running. And for me, with my first experience of that, it didn't feel like enough time. I didn't feel ready. And so that opening night of that performance, I probably looked like a deer in headlights. And I remember the feeling in my body. I remember it specifically in my legs. Like it was that feeling of freeze. You know how they say fight, flight, or freeze? I had this like freeze feeling in my legs. I was completely locked out of my lower body. And
Hmm.
I was terrified. That would be the
Mm,
best word to
mm,
describe it.
mm. So did you just go up to the director and say, sorry,
Not feeling like it today.
I'm just not feeling this right now. Maybe in a few months, let's do it again, and maybe I'll be ready."
There's a saying in theater, the show must go on. So
Mm.
I don't remember fully, but I'm willing to bet the thought of not doing it never crossed. Let me try to put this without the double negative. I knew I was going to do it. I wouldn't let everyone down that way. I was a character in a story. Even if the story, yeah, the story couldn't go on, even though it's a supporting role. The story couldn't happen without me. So I was going to go on.
So sometimes they say once you get out on stage, it feels better. Did it feel better when you got out on stage?
Not exactly this particular opening performance. I think in the future, in the performances that followed, it felt a little bit better, but that show I was just getting through it the whole show. My mind was running constantly like, don't mess this up, don't mess this up, don't mess that up. And that was pretty much my whole experience. So pretty much the opposite of what I described with childhood is there was no joy in this for me. I was just getting a job done with so much fear coursing through my body.
I definitely ca- can relate to the feeling, and it's like it's like a double punch to the gut because it takes so much work to get prepared, even if it's just a month, and then you get out there and it's showtime, and then you're miserable, so you don't enjoy the thing. And it's, it's a pit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happened next? Did you quit singing and dancing and performing? Say, I'm done with this stuff. I don't want to feel that way.
I knew I didn't want to feel that way. And I'm sure, well, I was in school studying theater, and I'm sure it crossed my mind as maybe most aspiring artists will think, am I really cut out for this? Am I really cut out for this?
Mm,
Because I was shaken by that experience.
mm,
I thought I had confidence. I was confident enough to get the role in the first place, to go
mm.
audition for it and be chosen for a role. But it crossed my mind, am I really cut out for this? But I did not give up.
Because I mean, what we're talking about is, I mean, there's unfortunately a lot of traumatic experiences very intense, involving violence and such. But what you're talking about is you had a traumatic experience on that stage.
Yes.
So where do you go? You had this traumatic experience that that threatened your future dreams, your career path, threatened doing what you loved going forward. Where do you go next? With that type of threat?
So realizing, and this has been a theme for me, realizing that I could live through that, right? Coming out the other side and being like, well, I'm still alive. I still have a voice. I'm still in this training. And I think that was the perspective that I took, was I can get better. I can have fun doing this thing that I love to do. And the most impactful work was what I learned to do inside my mind, not I mean, of course the training's invaluable, learning from teachers and experts, professionals in the field, learning from them how to do this craft. Yes, but to get past this hurdle that we're talking about of that really strong fear, it took a rewiring of my brain.
So please unpack that a little. Yeah, I mean, you say it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that that makes sense. Like so many things that can be said simply, and it can kind of go, yeah, yeah, that sounds easy. Just rewire my brain, and all's well. But then, Chandler, how do you start with the rewiring of the brain?
So at the same time I was in theater school, I was also learning yoga for the first time
How did
because
you get introduced to yoga?
so I introduced myself to yoga because at the time, this exact time that we're talking about, I was struggling with physical and mental and emotional illness. I needed something that I could do that was healthy. and and then I needed something to do that I didn't hate doing. So for some people, they can go to the gym and they can run on the treadmill. Well, I hate doing that. So I couldn't do that.
I'm with you.
So I was like, maybe I won't hate yoga. And
So
so,
that's a endorsement you went with. Maybe I'll go to this because maybe I won't hate it.
yeah, and you hear it was very I was living in Philadelphia and it was very popular there. There were a lot of yoga studios to check out, and I was fortunate, maybe my second or third class, I was fortunate enough to meet a teacher. And I think this is a lot of yoga practitioners would say this. They met a teacher and what they were saying really resonated. And then they were like, for me, I was hooked. I was like, I will keep going to this class. And it was my teacher, Eric Burling. And I was at his class 4 to 5 days a week,
Mhm.
learning from him. And what yoga taught me at the beginning in maybe my first year was that I can show up and give my best and then do that every time. And then over time, I will be able to do better, more difficult poses. I will poses I'd look around the room and I'd be like, I'll never be in that pose. I just kept practicing,
Mm,
practicing.
mm.
They say in yoga, practice makes practice. And eventually, and then, what we learn on the yoga mat's a metaphor for life always. So I was like, okay, I can practice, and getting back to that like neural rewiring, I can practice new thoughts over and over and over and over again. And eventually they stick, and eventually they change the way I see the world and the way I live.
So Chandler, I asked you about rewiring your mind, and you immediately start talking about physical practice. What's the relationship between the two?
The yoga was helping me to get a better sense of what was going. You're reminding me why I brought it up, is that I wanted to get a better sense, or not wanted, I needed to get an understanding of my own body in relation to my needs. And yoga was bridging this gap where I would spend an hour or 90 minutes in connection with my body, listening to its cues, trying to be with the breath as much as possible. And this was teaching me so much about what I wouldn't have a word for at the time, but it was teaching me so much about my nervous system and what does calm feel like and what does grounded feel like, and what, maybe for the first time since I was a child, what does peace feel like in my body? So how does that relate to the brain? Well, now I know that allowing my body to enter a peaceful state, those darting thoughts, critical thoughts and judgmental thoughts and memories of people saying things about me, you can't do that. Those thoughts just pass, and I'm still in this peaceful body. I'm still in this grounded body.
So you almost learn that you can cultivate an experience of peace in your life, even if you don't have, even if your thoughts and your memories are not always joyful.
Right. I could separate it and say, that's a thought, but do I have to believe it? I could start questioning the thoughts. I could say, what if I chose a different thought? What if I chose to think, I've got this? What if I believed that? Oh, I've got this. So I've got this is a really good mantra for someone
I
who,
got that.
I've got this. And what does that do? If someone repeated that to themselves over and over again, how would that change their body? Like maybe they were kind of like down like this, and then they're like, I've got this. I've got this. And then suddenly their shoulders are back and their head's
Mm.
held tall. I've got this.
And then this was you were only having epiphanies, uh, uh, not epiphanies, but you were only having peaceful experiences in yoga classes and feeling more confident on stage. You were living in Philadelphia at the time, and then surrounded by your family. And how did the idea of moving somewhere else come into your head?
Well, two reasons. I I used to walk around. I think before I had even been to Southern California, I used to walk around Philadelphia like I lived in California. I'll spare you the details of me, breaking laws, gently breaking laws, but just giving the way I dressed and the way that I walked and what I was imagining my world to be. I was just like, I'm a California girl. And one of my best friends in Philadelphia, she moved to LA. And so while I didn't think LA was going to be my scene, I it planted the seed of Southern California. And you hear about San Diego and you hear it's an amazing, gorgeous place. And so the the reason and then the reason for why San Diego is I was feeling yoga was teaching me how important nature how important nature is medicine. And then living in Philadelphia, I had to really go out of my way to go find like a patch of grass somewhere. And so I wanted to when I was thinking about where to relocate, I was thinking I want to be somewhere where I can be outside every day.
Wait. How did yoga teach you nature's medicine? You're in a yoga classroom.
I'm inside, but oh yes, it was one of my teachers. Her name's Annalise Coulterman, and she introduced the technique of grounding. So grounding or earthing. And so I learned that we need to make contact with the earth. And in Philadelphia, I look outside, I step outside my front door and there is none. There is zero earth to, grass or soil. There's none. It's all concrete.
Hmm.
Good question.
So then you from Philadelphia, you found a job in San Diego and you planned an apartment and no, actually what
Oh.
happened?
I'm like, yeah, that all did happen, but not in the way you just said. I I packed up so I found a place I could crash, like couch surf, if you know about couch surfing, that website. So I had a place to couch surf. And they were cool with me having my cat, and I packed up my car. My mom did the drive out with me, so it was me, my mom, and my cat in my
Mm,
little Prius.
mm,
And we saw the US from the Northeast to the Southwest.
mm.
And yeah, I had no job and I had no permanent place to live. I just had a couple weeks where I could crash and get my footing. And yeah, it's as scary as it sounds.
You said it's as scary as it sounds.
It's scary to show up in a new place where I knew like two people. Like I had two friends in town at least. So that was I didn't know no one. But yeah, I remember times early on feeling like I had just jumped off a cliff and and then there was no ground. So I was floundering for a little bit there at the beginning because it was all so new and I didn't know what direction I was going in when I started to look for work. I didn't know what I really wanted to do, and the pieces eventually started to fall into place. And my mantra for this was I am safe and supported. I repeated that to myself in those scary times. I am safe and supported. And supported by what? I'm supported by life itself. And if San Diego wasn't going to be the place for me, it would let me know, right? I wouldn't have found a place to live. I wouldn't have found work. But I said, I phrased it the other way to myself. I said, if I'm meant to be in San Diego, it will open doors. It will open its doors to me.
If I'm meant to be in San Diego, I will open doors for me.
Yeah. it will want me to be, it will make itself hospitable to me. That's what I believed.
So had you done yoga teacher training back in Philadelphia?
That's right. Yeah.
So you came out with the skill and you started finding connections to teaching yoga classes, huh?
It took a while. It took a while. I kind of was a little naive thinking I could come out here and find a studio or start teaching private yoga just right off the bat. It did take a few years to get into studios, and I've done lots of different jobs here in the meantime. And now, yeah, now I'm teaching in a couple studios here.
What would you tell? s- So many times in life, we as humans get into those 2 year periods where things are not really not going as like we want them to go. But what would you say to people about being patient during those periods?
Yeah, one of my early mottos, something I journaled one time that sticks with me, and it's when life when life is telling you no, it's actually saying just wait. When you feel like life is telling you no, it's actually saying just you wait. I haven't lined everything up for you yet. So maybe that is where I learned patience. And yeah, I see life as a big learning opportunity. And so there's there's no rush. There's no rush to learn, for me at least. I was not in a hurry to quote unquote have it all figured out. And California suited that. A lot of people are living what maybe we would call like alternative lifestyles, or not working, working in your standard way. And so I felt I was going to be around people that were also figuring it out. What do I really want my life to look like? I don't know yet, but I'm going to spend some time and try different things.
And now, like, this is skipping forward some steps, but I, I forget what you're a vocal coach, but what's the overall name of your business?
Yeah, so I call myself a holistic voice coach because I incorporate the somatic life coaching training that I have, and the yoga teaching, and then all of my performance background. So I call it holistic because we're dealing with the whole person. I'm not just here to coach you on how to use the mechanism of your voice box, but I want to also support clients in unpacking what is keeping them, stuck, what is keeping them from not progressing in these creative or professional pursuits. And normally it's normally in the mind somewhere. Have you noticed that in your work too? That do you feel like you're dealing a lot with people's habitual thoughts, the way they think?
Yeah, I don't so much coach one on one anymore, but yeah, that's a big thing.
Right.
So what so what would you say to someone who's watching, I mean, maybe enjoy performing or singing as a kid, but but kind of at some point was inundated by that adult critical voice and kind of has moved on from all those dreams.
Yeah, for someone that's abandoned creative dreams, but wants to go back what's the first step? And I think the question that I would ask them to ask themselves is what would be fun? What would be fun? Letting this inner artist, which is not so different from the inner child, asking them, what would you like to do? What would you like to express? And letting them answer and then going at their pace. That doesn't mean, okay, let me just go out and on an audition for something right away. No, that's probably too much right now. Right now, could you find a song to sing? We're talking if it's a singer, could you just find something that would bring joy? I think that would be a great first step.
It occurs to me that so often as adults we are told we need to get busy doing the things, making the money, having all the things, and we sometimes or oftentimes even forget to ask ourselves what would be fun, what will bring me joy. It's a great question. Speaking of singing, will you? I'm going to play the song you sent me. Will you kind of set the stage a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in a band that is so much fun. We are an alternative folk band, as one friend calls it. And these are some lovely musicians and myself performing for a private party, beautiful setting out here in eastern San Diego County. And yeah, I'd love for y'all to y'all, my southern's coming out. I'd love for y'all to hear it.
So you went from the dream of b- walking along. You went from walking along Philadelphia, dreaming of being in Southern California, and now you're performing for private parties and beautiful settings. I love it.
Hmm.
So Chandler, can you see this right now?
Yeah, I can see it.
And can you hear it now?
Not hearing
No.
it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, this gives me everything.
Before it's on down, take a look at me. Come on, baby. Don't take me. I gotta know if you're sweet love. Stay. Remember who's we may win, but we will be here again. So open up, I'm climbing, and take it easy.
Okay, I will. Mm, that is beautiful. Your voice is beautiful. Beautiful. The instrument are amazing. What what would you tell someone watching who's like, oh, I want to sing, but I don't. Chandler was just born with a beautiful voice. I don't have that voice.
Right. Yeah. Well, that you're reminding me of what we said just before we started recording here today. That well, I'll share your secret. Jason's like, I'm nervous, and I'm like, I'm nervous too. And we all. I don't know any performer that doesn't once in a while get nervous when something feels like a little bit of a stretch. This is different for me. And so there's nerves that come with that. But the finest line in the world, the thinnest line in the world is the nervous and excitement. they feel almost identical. It's kind of just a connotation in the head. I've heard this, and I find it to be true. And so for someone that, well, comparison doesn't really have a place in art. Like if you're going to say, "Oh, I don't sound like you." Well, that's good. Because I already sound like me, but you sound like you. And I'd be curious about that. I would be curious about what your sound is. And we don't need more people to sound like me because I got that covered. So I would encourage them to see what their sound is and how they might celebrate that.
Um, two things. For, first of all, what role does preparation and practice have in what we just heard?
So I find the more prepared I feel, the less nerves I'm typically going to have, because if I'm going out to perform a song and it's feeling rusty, like in my mind, it's like, oh yeah, we haven't practiced this one for a while. That already sets my nerves off a little bit because I'm just like, hopefully I remember all these words and hopefully this sounds okay. But I've adopted the practice of preparing and going through all that I need to go through, not in an obsessive way, but in our dress rehearsals, we'll call it dress rehearsals, like our last rehearsal before the performance will be a time where I'll go full out, right? I'll do our set full out and I'll just take note, where did I make mistakes? And I will do a little before we go on stage, whenever that is, a couple of days later, I will spend a little bit of time with those. And then from there, I try to just make peace. I just try to make peace with, okay, not everything is going to go to plan. It was so funny, the last show we did, I almost completely forgot an entire song. All I could remember was the chorus. So I just kept singing the chorus, and it was horrible inside, but nobody knew. My band covered for me when I was taking breaks to try to collect myself. Nobody really was aware of what was going on. And I think that's a really important point, that though we may be having a hurricane of dread and emotion during something, it's not, you would think, "Oh, everyone knows that I'm feeling this way. Everyone knows that." It's not true. They're not they don't have that same experience because they're not living inside your body with you. So,
Well, that's so important. Such an
yeah,
important point.
yeah, they are probably just having a good time because that's what they're there to do. They're probably just there to enjoy music. And they're not sitting there taking notes like, "Oh, yep, she definitely messed up that lyric and she hit the wrong note there." They're not doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's such a good point. I just put your website up for anyone who wants to know more. But and but s- but speaking of a podcast, the theme comparison has no place in art. Sounds like a really good subject for a podcast episode. Comparison has no place in art. And
I gotta write that down.
and and it'll also be on the end of your show too, which is nice. But speaking of a podcast, congratulations. It's right
Thank
here.
you so much.
And can you see the picture of the confidence download?
Yes. And there's someone looking very confident there as well.
Yeah, very confident. Tell us about your vision for your new podcast.
Yeah, it's a it's a form of media to extrapolate on these topics and to offer to artists, creatives, leaders, anyone using their voice, anyone who wants to have a little bit more fun with their creative pursuits. These are my, I guess, to put it as plainly as possible, these are my tips and tricks. This is what works for me, and I'm excited to bring on some experts to I'm very excited to bring on my one of my mentors, my college mentors, who is one of the most confident people that I know. So I'm excited to have these conversations and share what I think is the kind of the secret ingredient to a confident life.
That's the secret ingredient to the confident life. That sounds very, very intriguing and very, very useful. And you already have a few episodes up, right?
Yes, yes. And more to come. Thursdays will be the day that those drop.
And it's
Hopefully.
available on Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a couple others. Yes.
Cool. Congratulations. And I
So much.
have one more question to ask you, which I ask all my guests, and I'm excited for your answer. Chandler Price, what does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
It means real. It means reality. It's perfect is no fun. Perfect has no joy. And it's real. It's real. When I'm imperfect, I am real. And that is what the world, I think, what the world wants from me is my imperfect best. And I hope others can be, yeah, I hope others can be inspired to, and I'm sure they are through this work that you're doing, to put that version of themselves forward.
Hmm. I hope so. I love doing this work, and it's my fondest dream that it ripples out to inspire people.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Chandler, for when you were on the thank you for not giving up on your dreams when you were a sophomore in college, but persevering and and really today I love talking about this with you because you define confidence as something attainable for each one of us, something we all can go into. It's not like some people in your mind, it's not like there's some lucky, confident people and the rest of us are wallowing in confidence.
Yeah, it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you flex. That's a muscle that you build in the gym, the confidence muscle.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to end the show now, but please stay on for a few minutes. It takes a few minutes for things to upload, not download. Medium
Thank you
load. I
so
don't know what it's anyway, stay on.
Thank you for having me, Jason. This has been too much fun and I didn't want it to end.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. And thank you all for tuning in and thinking about confidence with us and learning about it with me and I wish you as my dad that has talked about for years a quiet confidence, a quiet confidence that you can do what you want to do in life, that you can live your dreams. And remember that you are the best. And you're the only one of you in the world.
Mm.
So to be confident in that best, in the treasure you are. I wish that for you. I wish that for Chandler. And I wish it for me. Until next time, have a great day and remember to smile.